Good morning, Yulia.
Good morning, Susan.
My name's Suzanne. I'm one of the team leaders on the Homes for Ukraine scheme.
My name is Yulia. I'm also a part of Home for Ukraine support team.
We are here today to discuss the welfare visits. So, firstly, Yulia, what are the welfare visits?
This is a part of the scheme. They are mandatory welfare checks visit, which involves a friendly conversation with sponsors and guests to see how the guests are settled here in the UK and to check what kind of support sponsor or guest might need from the council. The welfare visit is one of the checks that need to be completed before payment is released.
Thank you. So what are the other checks?
It's true, we have other checks, which are accommodation checks and also DBS checks. They are also part of this process.
Thank you. And so when do the visits happen?
We have now initial visit, which usually takes place within the first month after the arrival of the guest to the United Kingdom. And then after 6 months of the guest staying with sponsor, the second welfare visit takes place. But please note that if a guest is rematched, that they will require another initial visit and 6-month visit as well.
Thank you. So when and where do the visits take place?
The brokerage officer make an appointment via phone or email with sponsor and guest and to find out the comfortable date and time, and then the brokerage officer visit the house of the sponsor on the scheduled date and time. It is very important that on the time of the visit, sponsor and guest be present in the house, so the brokerage officer can possibility to talk to both of them.
Thank you. And how about children?
Um, We would like to see all of the guests and sponsor at the time of our visit, as I already said, but it's not necessary for children to miss the school. So if your child is at a school, we will contact the school separately after the visit to confirm that they are on the register and offer support to the school if needed.
Thank you. We'll now share the brokerage form that's completed. So my next question is what do you talk about on visits?
So questionnaire are focused on how the guests are settling into the UK life and if the Home for Ukraine support team can be of any help with this process. We make sure that guests received all of the documents for legal residence in the UK, that they registered with the doctor, applied for benefits, enrolled into English language classes if it's necessary, and also enrolled their kids to school. We also talk about the plans for the future for both guests and sponsor, and the normal practice for the brokerage officers on visit to speak to the guest and sponsor individually as well as together.
Thank you. So we're just having a look at the form here. Did you want to go through the form for us?
Yes, so here you see the main information which brokerage officer asked during the visit. Obviously, this is the name and contact information and date of birth, address, but I would like to draw your attention to the email. Sometimes we have a problem in UK when your email is ukr.net, because sometimes it's bounced back and the recipient cannot receive it. So if you have this Ukrnet, we probably will ask you to have an alternative one like Gmail, and that's how we can communicate with you with no obstacles.
Thank you. And the guest and sponsors are seen separately, you mentioned. Could you explain a bit further about that?
Yeah, this is a practice. We spoke to them, as I already mentioned, separately and together, and why we decided to talk to guests and sponsors separately is just to give everyone an opportunity to voice any query or concern they might have. So this was what we were focused on while deciding this.
Thank you. And I can see on the form there's a question about rent and utilities. And if you wanted to explain a bit more about that one.
Yeah, this is actually one of the questions which is also very important, because part of the Home for Ukraine scheme is that the rent is not allowed to be charged, but a reasonable and proportionate amount towards food and utilities can be requested. So we covered this further in our Home for Ukraine support team guest and sponsor video. So please watch our videos later, and where we talk more about this.
Thank you. And there's another question on guest saving. Why is this necessary?
This question is actually also very important, because it kind of preparing guests for the long-term plans and preparing for plans for moving into the independent living. And we will also talk about this in our next videos.
Thank you. I can also see there's a question regarding boundaries and house rules. Just wanted to wonder if you wanted to explain a bit further about that.
Yes. So one of the main reasons for the relationship breakdown is obviously miscommunication around expectation. And it is very important to have an honest and respectful conversation about boundaries and house rules, and understand that it is flexible in any relation, not just in relationship host and guest. So sometimes even who is doing washing up can cause breakdown relationship, really. And sometimes when guests move into sponsor and house, and sponsors start to do everything for the guest, and sometimes it's not sustainable, and this can cause the breakdown in the relationship as well. So this includes helping with transport, cooking, and etc. So it is good to manage the expectation from the very beginning, for everyone know how it will work for them. And settling the correct boundaries and house rules is beneficial for both parties, and guests and sponsors, and it can make your experience rewarding one.
Thank you. That makes sense. So is there a checklist? I can see it says there's a checklist here that you go through.
Yes, this is to make sure that guests have everything they need, and including the option to be referred to the commission services around employment and housing support. This information be explained further in our other videos as well.
Lots of videos.
Yeah. We
And then
prepare a lot of information for our guests and sponsors.
excellent. And at the bottom here, I can see a note about the Marcoms team.
Yeah, this is our communication team. So we are always looking for new sponsors and hosts for the scheme, and our communication team would like to use sponsors and guests' experience for case studies.
Okay, and it mentions a Fizz newsletter and a Homes for Ukraine newsletter.
Yes, this is correct. Now, Home for Ukraine team in Warwickshire has a newsletter which you can find and subscribe on our web pages.
Thank you. We've got down to the bottom, we're talking about a 6 months checklist. Is there much difference between the initial and the 6 months visit?
It is quite different, we can say, just because the needs of guests changes, and they are different on every level. So if during the first visit, which is focused mostly on supporting the guest around what should be done in regards of documents and procedures after their arrival, when 6 months visit is just for checking if everything was successfully obtained and inform about long-term plans about staying in the UK.
Thank you. So what happens after the visits?
After the visit, so if your kids were absent because they've been in school, we email school also and talk to them. And the brokerage officers send the email to the guest and sponsor with the all information which was requested during the visit.
Thank you. So if I have any queries or I want to sponsor or I know somebody's wanting to sponsor, who do I contact?
Please contact the Warwickshire County Council Home for Ukraine scheme, and our contacts you can see now on the screen. This is our helpline number, which is working every day from Monday till Friday from 9 till 5. We're answering your questions. Also, please write us emails. We have Ukrainian and Russian speaking colleagues in our team, so you can write us emails every language which is good for you.
Thank you, Yulia. That was really, really helpful.
Thank you, Susan.
Bye-bye.